Welcome to the channel. Here, we don't offer quick fixes. We don't chase clickbait truths. We look deeper into stories, into patterns, into the invisible threads that hold together the world we live in. Today, we dive into a book that doesn't just give you a new opinion. It gives you a new way of seeing. This is Thinking in Systems by Donella Meadows, scientist, environmentalist, teacher, and a voice far ahead of her time. In Russian, the book is known as системного мышления, a kind of ABC of systems thinking. But don't be misled by the word ABC. This isn't about basics. It's about foundations. This isn't a book about how to fix everything. It's a book about how things are built, why our efforts often backfire, why problems tend to repeat, why more force doesn't always lead to more change, and why sometimes a subtle shift in perception is the most powerful move you can make. If you ever felt that the world doesn't run poorly just because people are lazy or irrational, but because something deeper is shaping our actions, something structural, dynamic, often unseen, then you're already walking the path of systems thinking. And in this video, we'll walk that path together, step by step, through examples, metaphors, stories, reflection. No preaching, no panic, just an invitation to meet complexity with clarity. Thank you for being here. Your attention isn't just a number. It's a signal that depth matters, that nuance matters, that there's a hunger for something more thoughtful, more honest, more human. If this video speaks to you, share it. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear what it sparked. Subscribe if you want to keep exploring this way of seeing the world quietly, clearly, together. And one important note, all excerpts and ideas from Thinking in Systems are shared here for educational and analytical purposes under the principles of fair use. This is not a replacement for the original book. It's an invitation to discover it. All rights belong to the original authors and copyright holders. And if this video inspires you to read Donella's work for yourself, then this system just worked. Block 1, Introduction. Sometimes you try to fix something, and it only makes things worse. You mean well. You put in effort. You try to solve it, but instead, it unravels. You replace a difficult boss, only to realize that the fear in the team doesn't go away. You start a new diet, download an app, hit the gym, and wake up a few weeks later more exhausted than when you began. You hope a new road will ease traffic. Instead, you're still stuck in the same jam. Only now it's on a 3-lane expressway, backlit by energy-saving street lamps. And at some point, you begin to wonder, am I doing something wrong? Is the system broken? Whose fault is this? But maybe nothing is broken. Maybe it's working exactly as designed. We live in a culture obsessed with fixing things. We like fast solutions, clear villains, clean victories. But reality rarely plays by those rules because the world isn't linear. It's layered, messy, interconnected. And sometimes the more you push, the tighter it pulls back. Sometimes the problem isn't in what's visible, but in the relationships beneath the surface. At some point in the last century, a woman named Donella Meadows began to ask questions most people don't think to ask. Not to be clever, not to be disruptive, just curious. Why do some efforts work and others exhaust us? Why do some problems shrink and others multiply? Why do the same patterns keep showing up across time, culture, geography? And her answer wasn't a solution. It was a new way of seeing. Donella wasn't a guru. She was a scientist, an ecologist, a quiet observer of systems. She didn't believe in easy answers. She believed in structure and in the idea that behavior is not random. It flows from the system it lives in. She co-authored The Limits to Growth, a report that startled the world in the 1970s. She built models. She wrote essays. But more than anything, she tried to teach people how to see differently, not just events, but patterns, not just outcomes, but intentions, not just noise, but design. And she once said, the system isn't broken. It's producing exactly the results it was designed to produce. A sentence that feels like a slap and a liberation. Because once you understand that behavior emerges from structure, you stop punching shadows. You start looking for the frame. And that changes everything. This video isn't a summary of her book. It's not a tutorial. It's not 10 key lessons. It's not here to teach you systems theory. It's here to walk with you, to move from the obvious to the subtle, from the frustrating to the illuminating, from symptoms to sources. We'll start with a toy. We'll end with a paradigm. And along the way, you may recognize your workplace, your country, your family, or yourself, not in diagrams, but in stories, in moments, in invisible threads. Systems thinking is a framework. It's not a trick. It's not even a discipline. It's a way of paying attention, a way of noticing what's usually ignored, a way of asking questions when everyone else is shouting answers. What's underneath this behavior? What's repeating? What's being reinforced? What goal is quietly driving this whole system? If you ever felt stuck in a loop, if you've ever wondered, why does this keep happening? Then this way of seeing might be what you've been looking for. So let's begin, not with noise, but with clarity, not with advice, but with story. No formulas, no promises, just a gentle shift in how you see the world. Because once that shift happens, your questions change, your actions change, and sometimes the system starts to move with you. This is where it begins. Block 2, what is a system? Sometimes you observe a behavior, and it just doesn't make sense. People act in ways that contradict what they say. Organizations sabotage their own mission. You make a logical decision, and the outcome feels like a bad joke. You apply pressure in one place, and the system pushes back somewhere else. You try to explain it with logic, with intentions, with personalities. But then a different thought arises. Maybe it's not about people. Maybe it's about how things are connected between them. A system is like a room. You walk into it, and you breathe differently. You might not yet know why, but you sense something. Here, it's not okay to speak up. Here, one person always decides. One stays quiet. Even if you replace everyone inside, the atmosphere remains. Let's try a different metaphor. Imagine a toy, a slinky. Simple metal, spiraling. Hold it in your hand and let it go. It begins to walk itself down the stairs. It moves. It pulses, as if it's alive. Now place it on a table. Do the same gesture, same hand, same force, but nothing happens. Why? Because energy alone doesn't create behavior. Structure creates behavior. The same input in a different configuration leads to a completely different outcome. And that's the first quiet truth of systems thinking. We're taught to focus on force. Push harder, get better results. Explain again, and people will understand. Swap the broken parts, and the machine will work. But sometimes the problem isn't in the parts. It's in the logic that hold them together, the connections, the expectations, the assumptions no one speaks aloud, but everyone obeys. So what is a system? Almost anything that moves, breathes, repeats can be a system. Your body, blood, breath, tension, rhythm, a team, roles, unspoken rules, emotional undercurrents, a marketplace, demand, trends, fear, trust, a relationship, who withdraws, who always apologizes, who carries the silence, the climate, forests, oceans, sunlight, oil, wind, a regular morning. Alarm, phone, coffee, traffic, mood. A system isn't a thing. It's a pattern, a relationship, a dynamic. It's not what the parts are. It's how they relate to each other and why they were brought together in the first place. Take a company. On paper, everything exists, roles, mission, incentives. But inside there's fear, silence, burnout. And no one knows why until you look deeper. What gets rewarded here? Even if it's never said aloud, what is considered normal? How are power and permission distributed? Who gets to say no and who never does? Take a family. Everyone plays a role, even if no one ever agreed to them. The hero, the caretaker, the quiet one, the fixer. If one person changes, the entire emotional rhythm is disrupted, not because they did something wrong, but because the system is recalibrating. Take a country. You can rewrite the laws, change the leaders, rebrand the future. But if the true goal of the system is stability at any cost, then no matter the slogans, the behavior will return to the old shape, because a system is not what's written. It's what gets reinforced. Then comes the real question. What matters more, the individual or the structure? What's stronger, the rule or the pattern? Should we fix people or change the context in which they operate? Systems thinking whispers back. Focus on the relationships. Focus on the goals. Focus on the loops. Then, and only then, look at the behaviors. A system can resist even your best efforts. You can pour in time, money, energy, and get nowhere. Not because you're wrong, but because the system is designed to absorb or deflect that input. But then you touch the right spot. You shift one connection. You change one hidden goal. And the behavior changes on its own. It feels like magic. But it's not. It's just that you finally found the leverage point. A system isn't what we see. It's what moves the things we see. Systems have rhythms. They adapt. They overcorrect. They protect themselves. They evolve. You can't control them directly, but you can listen to them. You can notice the delays, the pushes, the pullbacks. You can sense the feedback loops and choose where to intervene. That shift from frustration perception is the moment you stop being a stuck participant and become a dancer with the system. That's when everything starts to change. Block 3, how systems behave. Sometimes you take a step and it feels like nothing happens. You plan, you push, you launch, and you wait, but nothing moves. The system seems silent. Then suddenly a shift, a ripple. The result arrives. Late, sideways, unexpected, sometimes underwhelming, sometimes overwhelming, sometimes far away from where you expected it to show up. That's how systems behave. They don't respond instantly. They aren't linear. They don't obey you. A system is not a machine with buttons that give feedback on command. It's a living, breathing rhythm of interactions where every input spreads out through time and space before it finally echoes back. We like simple cause and effect. Push results solve outcome effort impact. But systems don't work that way. They move differently. They carry memory, inertia, delay. They store tension. They respond not immediately, but in their own time. Systems breathe. They hold back. They regulate, they remember, and they often answer only after you've stopped asking. Imagine a bathtub. Water flows in through the tap. It drains through the hole. The water level, that's the stock. Turn the tap faster, water enters. Unplug the drain, water exits. But the level doesn't rise instantly. It changes slowly, accumulates, balances, delays. That's how systems work. Stocks flows in the lag between cause and effect. Now, bring that into the real world. You launch a new product. You put your soul into it, but no one seems to notice. And then, weeks later, momentum from a place you never expected. A friend told a friend. A ripple spread. The system, which seemed indifferent, suddenly becomes alive. Not because you did something brilliant, but because you found the rhythm and waited for it. Here's the opposite. You see a problem and jump to fix it. Fussed, confident, decisive. You increase pressure, add structure, tighten control. At first, stability, then friction, then chaos. You wonder, what went wrong? The answer, you didn't wait for the delay. You pushed harder, misreading silence as resistance. And the system absorbed your energy until it couldn't anymore. Then it collapsed. That's what happens in bodies. You overwork, you skip rest, you hustle, and everything seems fine until one morning you can't get up. Burnout, breakdown. It didn't arrive suddenly. It was growing quietly. That's what happens in society. Decades of injustice pile up, and then one moment, one spark, protest, revolt, collapse. Politicians say, we didn't see it coming, but the system saw. It was signaling. We just weren't listening. That's what happens in nature. We emit, extract, disrupt, and the temperature seems to hold steady. Until flood, fire, collapse. The system wasn't fine. It was delaying its answer. And when it came all at once. Systems can wait, but they never forget. They adapt. That's their strength and their danger. You overload a team and it finds a way. You pollute a river and it keeps flowing. You ignore an issue and life goes on until it doesn't, until the system can no longer compensate. And the reaction is sudden, harsh, disproportionate, sometimes irreversible. Sometimes systems regulate themselves. There's feedback, balance, self-correction. But other times, the feedback loops spiral out. Each correction creates a new distortion. Each fix worsens the imbalance. The system begins to collapse not from weakness, but from the weight of its own logic. A system can stabilize itself, or it can accelerate its own destruction. To understand a system's behavior, you have to learn to see not moments, but momentum. Don't ask, what just happened? Ask, what's been building, and what's still flowing. Don't ask, why do they act this way? Ask, what feedback loop shaped this? Don't ask, what do we do now? Ask, where's the pattern? And how long has it been waiting to speak? Systems are like oceans, calm, then crashing, then calm again, always moving with forces deeper than the surface. You can't control them. You can't predict every wave, but you can listen. You can track the rhythm. You can move with awareness, not force. Systems behavior is not noise. It's not chaos. It's a kind of language, slow, subtle, full of delay and echo. The ones who rush miss it. The ones who fight get pushed back. But those who wait, watch, listen, they begin to dance. They don't react. They adjust. They don't demand. They align. And slowly, quietly, they begin to change a pattern, not by domination, but by understanding. And that changes everything. Block 4, feedback loops. What makes a system truly alive? Not just its parts, not even the connections, but the fact that it responds. It listens. It senses itself. It adjusts, sometimes quietly, sometimes too late, sometimes exactly when it matters most. This capacity for self-awareness, for course correction, this is what we call feedback. Feedback is the inner voice of a system. Memory, its instincts, its pulse. It's how a system knows when it's drifting, when it's pushing too far, when it needs a pause or shift or recalibrate. A system is watching itself and responding, but not all responses are the same. Some soothe, some accelerate, some pretend nothing's wrong, until something is. That's where the two main types of feedback emerge. Two directions, two logics, two kind of motion. 1. Balancing loops. The art of returning. These are feedbacks that whisper, slow down, come back, stay within range. They work to maintain stability, not through force, but through constant, gentle correction, like a pendulum seeking center, like breath. Examples are everywhere. The body, you overheat, you sweat. You're hungry, your body signals for food. Your blood pressure rises. Internal systems work to regulate it. The mind, you feel fear, and the brain searches for meaning. You lose focus and instinctively return to routine. Social systems. One person steps out of line. The group, subtly or directly, pulls them back, not out of hostility, but to protect the system's rhythm. These loops protect. They prevent chaos. They help the system survive. They're like gravity. You can leap, but something always pulls you home. And in that, there's wisdom, but also limitation, because sometimes stability becomes resistance. You try to grow, and the system gently drags you back. You propose change, and the whole thing pushes against it. Quietly, you feel inspired, and a day later, you're doubting again, not because you're weak, but because a balancing loop is doing its job. 2. Reinforcing loops. The engine of escalation, now the other side. These loops don't slow things down. They amplify. They multiply cause and effect. Each action fuels the next. Each outcome becomes the input for more. What starts small becomes exponential. The internet. You post, someone shares, it spreads, more people share, explodes. The more it moves, the more it accelerates. Inflation. Prices rise, people buy faster, demand grows, prices rise again. A loop not of greed, but of momentum. Arguments. One sharp word, another, then voices rise. Defenses harden, and now you're fighting. Even if it started with a sigh. Reinforcing loops are powerful. They drive progress, creativity, change. But without limits, they can become destructive. A company grows too fast, culture cracks, systems collapse, wealth concentrates, inequality rises, trust erodes. You keep saying yes, pace quickens, burnout follows. Reinforcing loops create motion, but without breaks, they burn out. Now imagine both types of loops working at once. You're accelerating and something resists. You make progress and then feel uneasy, like it's too much. You push forward, and a part of you pulls back. That's the dance most systems live in. Politics, economy, the human psyche, families, entire civilizations. Everywhere there's something that fuels and something that regulates, and they're in constant conversation. To understand how a system behaves is to see which loop is active, which one is muted, and which one you might be unknowingly reinforcing. Sometimes the best intervention is not advice, but relief. Sometimes the wisest move is not more effort, but space. Sometimes real leadership isn't about speeding things up, but about restoring feedback. Because when feedback is broken, the system loses orientation. It doesn't know where it is. It reacts blindly, and its responses become unstable. But when feedback is clear, the system can feel itself again. It can adjust. It can choose when to move and when to be still. Feedback is the system's voice. And the sooner we learn to listen to it, the less it will need to scream. The fewer the breakdowns, the wiser the flow. Block 5, system traps and archetypes. Sometimes you look at a system and everything seems to be working. The processes run. People stay busy. Decisions get made. Money flows. And yet, something feels hollow. Not broken. Not chaotic. Just stuck. Like a song playing on loop. The same rhythm. Over and over again. Life mimicking itself. Progress and appearance only. You feel it in a project that doesn't move. In a family where everyone smiles but no one sees. In a state where the speeches continue, but no one remembers what the words once meant. That's a system trap. A trap is not a malfunction. It's a pattern so stable, so self-sustaining, that it keeps running even after its purpose is gone. It's like a machine left on overnight, still moving, still humming, but no longer serving anything. It's not evil. It's not stupid. It's just what happens when no one is looking. System traps are not flaws. They're loops, structures that reinforce themselves, logics that once made sense, but now function in the absence of reflection. And the hardest part? They often start from good intentions. Let's look at a few of the most familiar. Trap 1. Shadow solutions. Shifting the burden. This is the quietest trap. The most seductive. Something hurts and you numb it. Not fix it. Not face it. Just soothe the symptom. Stress? Coffee. Exhaustion? Scroll more. Conflict? Change the subject. Financial hole? Another loan. Organizational chaos? At a meeting. You act and feel better. Briefly. But underneath, the system remains unchanged. Still moving in the same direction. This is the trap of comfort over correction. The pain gets quieter. The problem gets deeper. Over time, the system learns that pain isn't a signal. It's just noise to be silenced. The body, dull with medication, keeps breaking down. The business, patched with funding, never rethinks its model. The relationship, softened by distraction, avoids real connection. Shifting the burden is a trap of forgetting. You're still walking, just not toward healing. Trap 2. Rules over reason. The ritual trap. This is what happens when systems lose their soul, but keep the choreography. There once was a goal, a purpose, a spark. But now all that remains is routine. You go to work and do what's expected. People talk, but no one listens. Everyone performs their roles, but no one believes. The motions continue, but the meaning has left. This is a trap of ritualized compliance. A teacher finishes a curriculum, but no one in the class feels seen. A doctor follows the protocol, but ignores what they intuitively know. A civil servant obeys the law, but forgets its spirit. It's a trap where form replaces function, where the letter of the rule chokes the life of the mission, and the longer it continues, the harder it becomes to even remember what you were trying to do in the first place. Trap 3. The tragedy of the commons. This one feels rational, logical, even responsible. It's a trap where each individual acts in their own best interest. And in doing so, everyone loses. A fisherman catches just a little more, because if he doesn't, someone else will. Eventually, there's no fish. A commuter cuts to the shoulder to save time. Soon, everyone's doing it, and traffic is worse for all. A company avoids taxes just this once. Then others follow, and public services degrade. This is not greed. It's disconnected logic where there is no sense of we, no sense of shared stakes, of long-term vision, of mutual care. And the most tragic part is, even those who see the trap often can't find a way to step out of it alone. Trap 4, escalation. This one's deeply human. It starts when you just want to be heard. So you raise your voice. But instead of listening, the other person tenses, defends, reacts. So you push harder. And suddenly, it's not about solving the problem. It's about not losing. This is how arguments spiral, how protests turn violent, how wars begin. You give a discount. Your competitor undercuts. You slash prices more. And both of you spiral into a loss neither can afford. One nation arms itself more. Another matches. And now they're locked in a dance of fear, not strategy. Escalation is a trap where feedback becomes fuel, where you're no longer responding to reality, but to the last reaction. And every move pushes both parties further from sense and deeper into survival mode. It's a trap where emotion becomes momentum, and reason is too slow to catch up. But traps are not fate. Here's the most hopeful truth. Traps can be seen, and what you can see, you can begin to shift. They don't need heroes. They need awareness. They need one person to pause, to notice, to speak what no one wants to name. Maybe the system doesn't need to be dismantled. Maybe it just needs a new question, a reconnection to purpose, a restored feedback loop, a different kind of conversation. Sometimes the shift begins not by pushing harder, but by stepping out of the automatic. You don't fight the trap. You stop feeding it. And then it starts to loosen on its own. Traps are not evil. They're stories that forgot how to end. And the moment you see the pattern, you are already, in some small way, standing outside of it. Block 6, leverage points. Sometimes you look at the world and it feels too large, too tangled, too entrenched in its own. That's just the way things are. You want to change something, but where do you even begin? Because everything seems connected. Everything loops back. Everything resists. And then sometimes you find a place, small, unexpected, almost delicate, where a single touch shifts everything. Not because you forced it, but because you touched the right place. These are called leverage points. Tiny changes that ripple into big shifts. If you've ever seen one quiet voice shift a room, one new idea transform a company, one conversation soften years of tension, then you already know this is real. The power of impact isn't always in force. It's in focus, in timing, in depth. Donella Meadows, yes, the woman behind all of this, once wrote her most famous piece, Leverage Points, places to intervene in a system. It wasn't a checklist. It was a map, a set of entryways, from the shallow to the profound. And here's the paradox. The deeper the leverage point, the less obvious it seems, but the more powerful the effect. Let's step through them. 1. Parameters. Numbers, flows, inputs. This is the shallowest level, and the one we love to touch. Budgets, taxes, penalties, staffing, rules, targets. Sometimes it works, but more often it's temporary, cosmetic, because if the underlying structure remains, it will absorb the change and continue as before. 2. Feedback loops, a subtler level. Here, we don't just tweak numbers, we restore the system's ability to feel itself. Examples? Transparency in public spending, whistleblower protections, honest evaluations, anonymous feedback, health warnings on overwork. These aren't radical changes, but they reintroduce sensitivity. And sometimes that's all it takes for the system to course correct on its own. 3. The goals of the system. This is where the ground begins to shift, because every structure serves a purpose, and that purpose shapes every decision inside it. If the goal is grow at all costs, everything else will bend to fit. But if the goal becomes well-being or resilience or long-term trust, the shape of the system starts to transform. Changing the goal is like turning a ship. Slow, heavy, but everything follows. 4. The paradigm. This is the deepest layer, not the system itself, but the beliefs that gave birth to it. The things we don't even question because they feel like just the way things are. That humans are separate from nature. That competition is always good. That mistakes are failure. That control is strength. That success must be measurable. But then someone asks, what if this isn't truth, just a lens? What if there's another way to see? What if we build a system around a story we don't believe anymore? And in that moment, the entire system trembles, not from collapse, but from reconsideration. Shifting a paradigm doesn't require force. It requires awakening. And it can begin with one person, one moment, one honest breath. I can't pretend this is normal anymore. Real world example. New Zealand. 2019, that year. New Zealand became the first country to structure its national budget not around GDP, but around well-being indicators, mental health, trust in institutions, social connectedness, equity of opportunity. Is it perfect? No, but it's not about perfection. It's about direction. It's not a new policy. It's a new intention, and that changes everything downstream. What does this mean for you? You are not the entire system, but you are a node, a link, a participant, and you can change the question, suggest a new goal, doubt an old assumption, restore feedback, or simply stop reinforcing the loop that's hurting you. And that's not small. That's a leverage point. A leverage point isn't where the most power is. It's where the most meaning is. And if you found it, you're no longer powerless. Block 7, conclusion. You listened. You reflected. Maybe something stirred inside you, not as information, but as a quiet recognition. You may have started this video out of curiosity. You're ending it with a new kind of clarity, not because the world became simpler, but because you began to see its structure. And perhaps that's the most important shift. Systems thinking isn't about solving everything. It's not about control. It's not about power. It's about noticing what was once invisible. And in that noticing, finding your place. And sometimes even a kind of peace. Understanding systems doesn't give you a magic lever. You won't suddenly control governments. You won't redesign the economy. You won't heal every family. You won't save the whole planet. But that was never the point. You are not all-powerful, but you are a sensing node in a living network. And that node has attention. It has intention. It has influence. The hard part of systems thinking isn't comprehension. It's presence. Because once you begin to see, you also begin to feel. You notice the manager who doesn't listen, not because he's cruel, but because the feedback loops are broken. You see your friend repeating a mistake and understand he's trapped in a loop, and pushing will only deepen it. You watch a society fight itself and realize it's not madness. It's a system whose goals and values are out of sync. And you pause. You don't fix. You don't rush. You listen. You soften. You become part of the pattern with awareness, not impulse. Systems thinking is emotional maturity. It's when you stop asking, who's to blame? And start asking, what structure keeps creating this? Stop saying, they just need to, and instead ask, what loop are they caught in? What pressure shapes this behavior? You stop fighting people and start studying the dynamics. And in that shift, you begin to realize what looks like stupidity may be the logic of the system. What seems like resistance may be a survival mechanism. What feels like chaos may be a delayed feedback loop. And what seems obvious may just be a belief we've never questioned. You begin to speak more gently, listen longer, act more precisely, judge more slowly. You stop rushing to save, and you stop needing to win. And that is not weakness. It's a different kind of strength. A strength that doesn't crush, but steers. That doesn't dominate, but tunes in. That doesn't overpower the system, but dances with it. You won't change everything, but you can stop reinforcing a harmful loop, restore a broken feedback signal, ask the question no one has asked, suggest a better goal, challenge an old assumption, support a new connection, become the one who doesn't escalate, but harmonizes at 2 is leverage. Maybe you won't be able to ignore what you used to walk past. Maybe you'll irritate those who still want simple answers. Maybe you won't be able to explain exactly what's changed, but something has. You'll see deeper, listen slower, move differently. The world will not be simpler. The systems won't be easier, but you will be clearer, more centered, softer, stronger. And maybe that is the beginning of real transformation. We can't control systems or figure them out, but we can dance with them. Donella Meadows. If something in this video touched you, don't let it slip away. Share it. Pause with it. Start a conversation. Ask a better question. Support what's ready to change. Systems don't shift because of force. They shift because a new connection emerges within them. And maybe that connection begins with you.